If you've ever driven a long distance late at night, you know the exact feeling. Your eyes get heavy, the radio stops keeping you awake, and the dashed white lines of the highway begin to blur into a single continuous stripe in the pitch darkness. You hit a point where you simply cannot safely keep your foot on the gas. Then you see it, one of those towering blue highway signs cutting through the rural night, glowing with familiar fast food logos and the promise of a nearby bed. Pulling off at that exit brings an immediate, profound sense of relief. You find the cheapest lodging available, hand your card to a tired desk clerk behind thick glass, and take your keycard. Once you step inside the room and hear the deadbolt click, you feel secure. You've purchased a few hours of safety. Roadside motels exist in a social and architectural gray area. They require minimal identification, frequently lack surveillance, and prioritize anonymity over guest vetting. This hands-off environment creates a vacuum on the edge of the highway, naturally attracting the fringe elements of society who rely on staying unmonitored. That $40 room is a box of drywall and glass, sitting directly on the path of anyone drifting through the night. Behind that door, you are only as safe as the lock and the intentions of the strangers standing on the other side of the wall. Take a family of women road tripping back to Texas after a spring break vacation. They spent time navigating the crowded tourist strip in Branson, Missouri, before eventually pulling off the highway at a random motel around 8 p.m., unmemorable motel around 8 p.m. to sleep. We tend to treat the front lobby as a secure checkpoint, but architecturally, it's a massive vulnerability. Unlike a secure building where visitors are screened before entry, a motel lobby is often entirely unmonitored. Anyone can walk in off the street and sit quietly in the shadows. Any information spoken at the front desk will echo across the room, reaching anyone who happens to be listening. That design flaw became a serious problem when the grandmother of the family called down to the lobby, and one of the sisters answered, repeating their specific room number out loud. Standing silently by the entrance was a strange man in a black sweater. He didn't have to break into their room to find them. They had unknowingly handed over their exact coordinates. Within a few hours, the man from the lobby was found standing motionless outside the stepmom's room on the second floor, slipping into an adjacent empty room to observe them. When the family panicked and fled to the parking lot, they found him coordinating with two other men who were pulling on car door handles and signaling each other in the dark. The family fled at 3 a.m., escaping a coordinated group that only needed a few overheard words to target them. In a space where anyone can sit in the dark and listen, a simple conversation at the front desk becomes an invitation to the person watching from the corner. Even when you make it to your room safely, you are entirely at the mercy of cheap construction. A solo traveler passing through Virginia learned this the hard way. Exhausted, he lay in bed at 1 a.m., annoyed by the muffled sounds of a couple violently arguing through the paper-thin drywall next door. But as he listened closer to the back-and-forth yelling, he noticed the timing was entirely unnatural. There was no overlap. He soon realized with a sinking feeling that there wasn't a couple next door at all. It was a single man, deeply lowering his pitch, then shifting to perfectly mimic a frightened woman's voice. The argument abruptly stopped. A moment later, the traveler heard a slow, deliberate knock on the shared wall right beside his head. Then a voice whispered through the drywall, "I hear you in there." The man next door then left his room and began pacing the exterior balcony. When the terrified traveler peeked through a crack in the blinds, the man was standing inches from the glass, staring back with wide eyes. He then began pounding on the door, rapidly cycling through high-pitched childish voices and an exaggerated southern drawl in the dark. Thin motel walls provide a convincing illusion of physical separation, but they offer absolutely zero psychological isolation. A predator doesn't even need to cross the threshold of your door to test your boundaries and trap you in a state of sheer terror. This chart highlights the ultimate structural failure of the roadside motel. On the left, a standard hotel design utilizes a closed-loop security perimeter. You must pass through a lobby, an elevator, and an interior hallway to reach a door. On the right, a traditional motel uses an exposed, outward-facing layout. Every single room opens directly into a public parking lot. This specific outward-facing design removes every single layer of defense. It places your bed dangerously close to an unmonitored public exterior, leaving only a thin pane of glass and a basic lock between you and anyone wandering off the highway. A couple driving from New York to Florida found out exactly how dangerous that proximity can be. Stopping deep into a 17-hour drive, the boyfriend stepped outside to grab a phone charger from his car. He left the room door cracked open out of habit. When he turned back around, a massive man in a trench coat was standing directly at the entrance, preparing to walk inside. The boyfriend managed to intercept the man, lock the door, and crawl across the floor to peek out the window. The man in the trench coat hadn't left. For 10 excruciating minutes, he stood frozen in the parking lot, staring dead on at their motel room door. Even when he finally stepped back, he remained planted across the lot, his eyes fixed on their window until morning. That exterior door design strips away all conventional security measures. It places exhausted, deeply vulnerable travelers literally face-to-face with the nocturnal threats prowling the parking lot. There is a chilling thread connecting all three of these survival stories. In every instance, the travelers realized that the front desk management was either completely absent, blissfully unaware, or entirely powerless to actually protect them. Surviving these encounters leaves lasting psychological scars because they violate humanity's most deeply ingrained instincts. When we lock a door and lay down to sleep, we expect that shelter to hold. When that boundary is breached, the trauma stays with you long after you drive away. The predators hunting outside these doors aren't supernatural monsters. They are highly disturbed, unpredictable, and entirely real humans who naturally funnel into these cheap, unregulated architectural dead zones where nobody is watching. Pulling off the highway to save a few dollars might seem like a smart decision when you're desperate for sleep, but when you choose the cheapest room at the edge of town, you are paying to sleep on the razor's edge of the dangerous unknown.